Okay, YouTube, wanted to do a video of my electrical service bag. Don't know if anybody will ever watch this video, but I figured it would be fun to do, so here we go. This is my electrical service bag that I use for troubleshooting and repairing electrical issues. I work on single-phase electrical services, three-phase electric services, low voltage controls, and data communications. This bag kind of has a smattering of all the tools that I need to do most of the work. I've got other boxes for more in-depth stuff, but this is kind of the bag that I take with me on any service call. It's a Milwaukee pack-out bag. It's compatible with the rest of my pack-out system, which I use for keeping all the rest of my electrical stuff. I've got divider bins that I keep connectors and wires and splices and all kinds of different things for doing repair work and new install. So we'll go into this, well, let's go into the left side first. On these pockets, there's a tape measure clip that I never use because if you put a tape measure there, it's right in the way of this, shoulder strap. Got some bits over here. I like these Racketeer bits. These are nice. That's a number 1 square. Use that with electrical devices, outlets, switches, all that kind of stuff. A lot of people think they take a Phillips head, but actually this number 1 square fits them much better than a Phillips. Next I've got a Malco roofing, I guess this is for roofing primarily, bit. It's double-sided. This side is a 5/16, and then you flip the end of it over and it is a quarter. So this is very convenient. Chinese finger trap wire puller. It's a 1/2 inch. Next I've got a WIA. I know it's actually pronounced VIA, but we'll say WIA because we're in the US. Cat 2 precision screwdriver. This has interchangeable tips. I've got all the tips here in the bag too. I use this inside of panels and on DIN rail things. They are hard to get in with one hand. Let me do that off camera. And it's still hard to do. Here, we'll just put that back there for now. Okay, now into the main pouch. Primarily all my screwdrivers are WIAs. I used to use Klein, started using WIA, and I've got rid of pretty much all of my Kleins except for this one Klein number 2 Phillips that I've had forever, and I can't give that one up. But everything else, my flatheads are WIAs, the rest of my Phillips, my Xenobit drivers, these are all WIAs. I got the number 1 Xeno. Got a long, slender, standard WIA. Robert Center square drive number 1 and number 2. In this next pouch, this is a regular WIA 5/16. This has a hollow shaft, so you can get long studs in here. It is not insulated or protected. Klein keyhole saw. Here is a Harbor Freight super insulated pair of needle noses. They don't even come apart because that's how often I use them. Like almost never. I've used them on live services before. Not gotten shocked yet. Here's an Ideal conduit reamer for doing EMT and rigid. Some different Allen wrenches here. That's what is that? That's a Pittsburgh set of metric. That's a Pittsburgh set of standards. I use these pipe tobacco cans to keep some of my more used fasteners. This one's going to have like miscellaneous box screws and crimps. Down in there, in the very bottom, There's a couple of Milwaukee unit bits. I don't know if you can see them way down in there. I don't feel like shoving my hand all the way down to get them. Moving on, here is a Gorilla UF stripper. I guess this is the best thing to strip UF that I've found. And UF's one of those things that I don't know if there is a good way to strip it, but this seems to work okay once you get the hang of it. Crappy little crescent wrench. Moving on, we've got some Nipex small lineman's pliers. Here are my Klein combination lineman's pliers. These have a crimper in the bottom. They've got the cut head, so you can use this for pulling metal fish tape. Got a pair of Via needle noses. Next, we've got this Ideal barrel stripper. This is great for Romex. I really like these wire strippers. These are snap-ons. They've got the crimper ends on them and a little plier end. Let's see, what else do we have here? We got some. These are the new Harbor Freight Icon flush cutters. They're all right. I keep my Greenlee marking pens in here. Got a white, a green, and a red for flagging wires. Here's a WIA bit set for screw gun. Here's a Greenlee half-inch nut wrench. Moving on, down in the bottom, here's a Racketeer's wire bender. This is great for like 4/0 and 250 and 500. You put this on a half-inch ratchet and it lets you bend 90s into the cable. It's great with aluminum wire. Next, I've got these Southwire stripper combination lineman twisting pliers. I don't know. These things aren't that great. I don't know why I still have them. I don't use them very often. These are the Kaiweets strippers with a precision cutting head. Just got these, jury's still out. Not sure if I like those or not. My favorite strippers that Klein made had a Romex tip on them, and they discontinued them a few years ago, and I lost the last pair that I had. This is a great tool right here. It's hard to find. Racketeer's hex bits that go into your impact gun. These work great in panels for doing panel lugs. I know probably any electrician is cringing at the thought of putting an impact driver on a lug screw. Yes, I have stripped some out in the past, but you know, for every one that I strip, you know, I put in 200 or 300 successfully. So I guess it's not that big of a deal. It's more of an expediency thing. It's convenient for me. That's why I do it. Got Klein large cable cutters. I only use these sparingly. I have a Milwaukee cable shear that I'm going to use for cutting wire most of the time. If I need to do something in a service application or a one-off, I'll go ahead and use these. But the carpal tunnel is what it is, so I always try to use the Milwaukee shear. Here's another one of my tobacco canisters with screws. Okay, I think that takes care of that side. Let's look at this side. Here's a pair of Heiko flush cuts. I keep these handy. These are my favorite for zip ties. Just got these. I haven't used them too much. Jonard communications scissors. I like the grip on them. I haven't used them too much, so I'm not sure, you know, how these are going to be. Next, we've got Klein. I'll do this with this hand. This is a replaceable blade cable skinning knife. Here is a WIA stubby Torx screwdriver. It's got all the Torx bits here in the back side. It's another thing that's really hard to do one-handed. Aha. All the bits are in the back there. I've got one of these for flatheads and Phillips too, somewhere buried in this bag. Okay, so that is the front side. Let's go ahead and flip this thing around and we'll go to the back. Excuse the mess on my workbench. I've been working on some LED projects and I haven't really cleaned up anything yet. Alright, so back here is mostly going to be diagnostics equipment and meters. So let's start. This is an amazing little meter here. This is the best $38 meter you will ever buy. It is a Kaiweets KM601. It is a push button meter. It does not have a selector switch. It is a reverse screen. It's got a smart automatic mode, which is convenient if you're going back and forth between doing voltage and continuity. It'll move really quick back and forth between voltage and continuity. If there's something that I'm testing that I want a higher degree of precision, I'm going to take it out of the auto function and put it into the function that I want. As far as functionality, it has everything I do, including a dumb, nearly useless non-contact voltage meter. I'm going to use a pin that's dedicated. I don't want to turn this thing on, fumble through the menu to find it. It's not convenient. But as far as doing regular voltage checks, resistance checks, continuity checks, this meter is great. I don't do too much with it with amperage, but it's a very easy to use meter. It's robust. I use it in the field. I have more expensive meters. I mean, there's my Fluke sitting over there, but this is what sits in my service bag, and this is the first meter that I grab. Highly recommend buying this if you're looking for a meter for your service bag. Totally worth $38. You cannot beat it. I'm gonna move on from that one. Next, what do we have down here? Here's my Fluke 9040 phase rotation meter. I do a fair bit of work with variable frequency drives and three-phase motors, so I almost always need to keep a phase rotation meter with me just to ensure you know, the legs on the VFDs are hooked up in phase. Don't know how many times I go to service calls and they've got VFDs with the legs hooked up out of phase. And I guess that, you know, it'll still work, but it bothers me. I don't like it, so I fix it. Here is a Greenlee drill tap set. Use this all the time for any new installs, putting in ground screws, that kind of thing. What else is down here? I do a fair bit of service work at a campground, so I keep this 50 amp camper plug dummy tester. This is a great way just to do an initial check without disassembling anything in the panel. I just throw this thing in real quick in the 50 amp plug, and it tells me if we've got some problems or we got a dropped out hot or a neutral is on the hot, whatever. Good for fast diagnostics. Doesn't really tell you much. What else do we have in there? We'll get to that in just a second. There's alligator clips down there, that kind of thing. Let's get into some of these other meters that I carry. Right now I'm carrying two different mega ohm meters because I'm not sure which one of these I like. I like both of them for different reasons, and I've been carrying both. I'll probably just whittle this down to one, and most likely it's going to be this one because this is a more complete mega ohm meter, if you ask me. It is a Megger MIT 410. There we go. I think my battery is dead in here. Oh no, there it goes. Alright. So that is my Megger mega ohm tester. This goes up to a 1 kV test. And what I like about it is it also has continuity in an ohms range. And what is really cool about this is if you hook this up to a line that has voltage on it, it will sound an alarm, let you know it has voltage, tell you what the voltage is and what the frequency of the voltage. It does your DAR testing, it also does the PI testing. This is a very complete, very good insulation tester, mega ohm meter. If you don't have one of these in your service kit, just any type of insulation tester, I highly recommend it. This thing helps a lot of times. I run into a lot of poor connection issues, corrosion issues in connections and boxes, wires failing, three-phase motors failing, compressor motors failing, switches, relays, you name it. If it's hard to find the problem, it's much easier when you throw 1,000 volts DC on it and then check the resistance. You will find shorts that you never knew you even had. Let's move that one out of the way. And this is the aforementioned other mega ohm meter that I've been carrying. It is a Fluke. I bought this mostly because I am a Fluke fanboy. This is a Fluke 1507 insulation tester. It's going to do most of the things that that the Megger does, but curiously enough, it does not have a continuity function on there. It does have an ohms range and it does have a volt range, but it does not have a continuity. I like the continuity on the Megger. That's something that you're going to do when you're doing mega ohm testing or you're doing insulation tests. You're going to search for things that are shorted. So having that continuity check there, you're just kind of going back and forth. Check continuity with the things that are supposed to have continuity, verify that, and then do your mega ohm testing on things that shouldn't have continuity. It's all in one meter. I like that. That's why I kind of prefer the Megger at this point. But this is still a great meter, the 1507. As far as mega ohm testing, it does everything you want it to do. The Megger's got it still in that because it has the bar graph display, and the bar graph display is nice. Next, what do we got in here? Oh, we've got a Harbor Freight temperature gun, infrared temperature gun. That's basic. I also have a FLIR thermal camera that's not in this bag. Like I said, this is kind of your first step, and then if I suspect something, I'm going to go to the thermal camera to look for heat issues, heat buildups. Probes, banana wires. Oh, here is my Fluke regular 120 20 amp 15 amp socket tester. This has a audible alarm when you plug it in, so it'll set off a buzzer when it's plugged in and it shows good. This is cool because if you're trying to isolate a breaker in a house, you can plug this in, you can hear the signal, you can go find it in the panel and listen for it when you shut it off. I like using this for that very thing and for doing GFCI checks. Further down in the bag, we've got a very beat up Southwire Cat 5, Cat 6 tester, just for testing cables. And oh look, there's a GE 30 amp breaker. And like all GE breakers, it's failed. Well, I guess they all fail eventually, but GE seem to love to fail. Next is my Fluke 901 HVAC clamp meter. This is a great clamp meter. Use it for doing AC current testing. Also, it has a picoamp setting here, so you can test igniters in HVAC. you know, like the striker igniters, not necessarily the hot surface ignition systems. Down a little bit further here, got a headlamp. There is a chalk line in there, that shouldn't be in there. Here's another plug tester, the Sperry testers. You can get these on Amazon. I've got like 10 of them. They're cheap, they work good. I got them all over the place, that way I'm never without one. Next, I have this little pouch here that I keep, and this has got most of my data stuff in it. I keep this so I can throw that pouch on when I'm doing splice work or connectors, termination ends on RJ45s, RJ11s. There's a Klein precision screwdriver. These are my favorite data cable scissors. These are Flukes. These are the ones I've just used forever, and I'm very comfortable with them. Here are some WIA strippers that go from 24 gauge to 32 gauge. Mechanical pencil. Here's a Fluke splice knife. Here is another set of flush cuts. Can never have too many flush cuts. Here is a, I guess you call these tweaker screwdrivers. These are for adjusting screws on boards, PCB boards, adjustment screws, potentiometers. And a pocket screwdriver in there. Got one of these extendable knives. These Olfa. These are nice. Like these. Need to put a new blade in this one. Here are my favorite RJ45 crimpers I have ever had. These are ideals. Oh man. These are for doing like your platinum tools ends that have the wires that feed through the end of the RJ45 connector. You just run your wires straight through, you pop it in there. It's got a cutter on the back side. You crimp and cut your wires flush all at the same time. And it has a cheat sheet on there too. I wonder what that switch does. Okay. Here are Southwire pliers. I never use these. I don't like these. They cut great. They're very ergonomic. But these freaking serrations on the back are so sharp. When I go to comb my wires out, it'll strip the wires when I'm combing them with my thumb. So it kind of makes it not a good pair of pliers for doing Cat 5e and Cat 6. There's a coax cable stripper down there. I can't get it out right now. Here's my little Southwire Cat 5, Cat 6 stripper. It's very hard to work in here one-handed. There's a flashlight down there. Here's some no-ox. Here's my Uglies electrical reference book. This is a great book. If you are an electrician, you should have one of those handy. If you're doing stuff other than just house wiring, I mean, if you're just wiring houses all day, you don't really need that book. There's, it's standard stuff. But if you start working on motors, switches, relays, contactors, anything like that, and then stuff where you have to use math, three-phase stuff, you need that book. It's got tables and formulas and other useful things. Here is the zipper pouch. Don't keep much in there. Extra blades, some bits, mostly that. And here's another zipper pouch. Do I even keep anything in here? I don't know. It does not appear that I keep anything in there. Oh, we need to backtrack a little bit. I moved a bag of meters and didn't show you. Probably because I'm embarrassed by this bag of meters. This is kind of something I'm trying out right now. I'm not using these all the time. This is more one of those AliExpress things where you wonder, this is so cheap, how bad can it be? Let's try it. The first one is an Aneng ST212 amp clamp. It does AC and DC current. And it's like $30, and the DC current mode is relatively accurate. If you're just using this for DC current alone, it's worth the $28. It's got standard multimeter functionality, just like any other multimeter. It has another lame non-contact voltage meter in there, but this one's a little more precise because it's right here in the tip of the amp clamp. Tiny little meter, cheap, works good. And next is an Anang AN8009. First thing, let me say, if you watch this and you see that I have this, let me caution you, I never hook this thing up to mains voltage. If you watch EV blog, he kind of went through this and did a teardown, Dave did, and it is seriously lacking in protection on the test inputs here. There's no diode protection or anything like that. Even though it says it has a Cat 2 1000 volt rating, I would never, ever, ever hook this thing up to even 120 volts. It totally lacks in any sort of protection. I've got plenty of other meters that have much better protection, so that's what I use. What this thing does is it is a 9,999 count meter, and it is very good at doing resistance. I can get very precise, very accurate resistance numbers in ohms on this. So that's almost entirely what I use this for. I use it for the ohms range. It's pretty good. They used to have a square wave generator on here instead of this non-contact voltage meter. Believe it or not, I think I'd prefer the square wave generator. For nothing else but then maybe hooking up to test oscilloscopes and oscilloscope leads. But I think that would be useful than another lame non-contact voltage meter. Again, we have non-contact voltage meter pins. They are cheap. They are plentiful. There's not one in my bag because there's always one in my pocket. Use that. You don't need it in this meter. We don't need these all-in-one meter functions. You need lots of meters when you're doing this stuff professionally. And this meter is my ohms meter. There's a lot of good reviews on this. EEV blog has a great review on it. He talks about it. Kind of goes through its pros and cons. It's got some serious limitations in the millivolt range. But man, it's accurate in other things. It's very accurate in voltage, way up high with DC volts. Very surprising. So it's another one that's like $25 or $28 on Alibaba or AliExpress. Buy it just so you have a super accurate ohms meter. I mean, it's worth it just for that. It comes with other things. They both do probes. Their probes are crap. They're the cheapest thing you can buy. The temperature probe is kind of neat though. It's actually useful. It's not just a thermocouple on a wire. It's got a metal probe that you can stick into things if you need to do such things. I guess maybe if you're doing barbecue in a pinch, you could do some meat temperature measurements with this. But that is my service bag. Again, this is the service bag that I'm going to take with me to do my initial diagnostics on a trouble call. If there's anything more in depth, I'm going to bring out other stuff. Oh, there is one more thing that I would like to mention. I bring this with me for testing most of the time, along with this bag, so it's kind of part of this kit enough that I think it's worth showing you guys. And that is this Klein circuit tracer. I have a Fluke circuit tracer, which is very nice too, and I use that one often. But this ET450 Advanced Circuit Tracer Kit is awesome because I can put it on live wires. I can inject a signal or a tone on live wires and trace them. All the way up to 480 volts AC, I can inject a tone. I use this to trace stuff outside. I mean, I can pull a signal 4 foot through the ground with this meter. It works really well. Again, it has a non-contact voltage meter on it. Why? Why do we need that on this? I don't know. I guess it's kind of pin shaped, so maybe they thought, well, anything in electrical that's shaped like a pin needs to have a non-contact voltage meter. I don't know why we need all these. Again, dedicated pins. You keep it in your pocket. Every electrician has one. Every electrician has 10 of them. We don't need these on all our meters. Give us a more useful function than a non-contact voltage, or just leave it off. Leave it off, eliminate the circuitry, drop the price point, something like that. But stop putting non-contact voltage meters on everything we use. We don't need it. This comes with a lot of leads, alligator clips, or crocodile clips if you're on the other side of the ocean. It even has a Edison plug. Oh, here it is. Yeah, an Edison plug injector. So if you're trying to trace down a breaker, you can plug this thing into the wall and put your signal on that. Turn the sensitivity way down on this thing, and you can isolate breakers and panels much better than those breaker finders. I've had those Ideal breaker finders. I don't have one, don't carry it, don't like it, never worked that great anyways. This actually works well. So if you're in the market for a circuit tracer, buy this one. It's cheap too. It's $199. It's cheaper than my Fluke tone generator. All right, guys, so this was the full tour of my troubleshooting electrical bag. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks.